Hey everyone, it's Senora Gaudette, and I'm just going to take a few minutes to walk you through what the World Language Department has been doing this year. I know how hard the World Language teachers are working and trying to do things a little differently this year, obviously, than we've done in the past, just due to the pandemic, but also that we are in the middle of a big curriculum change, and we're really trying to focus on teaching language in a way that's a lot more authentic, meaning that we are providing students with authentic resources. They are listening to native speakers from Spanish 1 right through Spanish 4. They are interacting with material that is not necessarily written for language learners, is written for actual language Spanish speakers, so that we can really focus our students on showing comprehension and proficiency in the real world. A lot of us took a world language when we were in high school, when we were younger, and we memorized a lot. And when it came down to it, we're not actually able to use the language all that well. So the idea is that we give students are now graded on a standards-based model, and it's all based on their actual proficiency. So we just wanted to spend some minutes really showcasing how this is working for us. So this is one of my Spanish 2 classes. This is my Google Classroom. This is how it's set up. It's set up by week. I'm in mid-November, and there is a reason, because I wanted to showcase this unit that we finished right before winter break. So the first thing we do is we always post the agenda for the week, and it gives students an idea moving forward what the week will look like. And so we are able to tell them, what we're doing each day, just a general outline, but it's able to give students sort of an idea, a heads up of what's coming for the week. We always go over the essential questions for the unit. So in this case, the unit is Las Comunidades. We're learning about communities. And students, the essential question is, ¿Qué hago en mis comunidades? What do I do in my communities? From there, last unit, our personal and public identities unit, we jumped right into having students build a vocab list. We are not providing students with a set vocabulary list. There are definitely common words and phrases that will come up that students will all sort of learn at the same time together. But we wanted students to have that autonomy to be able to focus on words that they're actually going to be able to use to talk about their communities. So if we think about our communities, I'm going to just jump into the vocab chart for a second. If we think about our communities, our first community is home. That's our central community. Homes look different for all different people. And so we're not going to go through and tell students, these are all the people that you need to learn about to talk about home, if those people aren't actually members of their family. They're not people that they consider to be part of their home lives. So we really want to leave it open to students to think about those essential questions, and to be able to build language around that. So we provided some activator videos where students would watch, and they're just a few minutes long, but they get students thinking about what is a community. They're in English because we really want students to be activating that prior knowledge, that schemata that they have, so that as they start to think about these questions in Spanish, they kind of know a lens through which they're thinking. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So next, they jumped into their dictionaries. And so they had to think about people, places, things, and activities that are a part of each one of their communities. So here's our concentric circles, with home being our most central one and country being the one that surrounds it. And then they were able to go in and write in English any people, places, things, activities, objects that are a part of each one of these communities. And so they did this from Spanish 1 right through to Spanish 4. When they are just writing down, okay, when I think about country, I think about the American flag, I think about freedom, I think about being a citizen, I think about all these things that make my country community, a home, maybe the people who are there, the objects, what they have, what they think are most important to them, etc. From there, they're able to do the same exact dictionary, but now they're doing it in Spanish. And so they would copy from what they wrote here. They would take all the words that they had written down in English, put them on this slide, and then using the website SpanishDict.com, they're able to look up the vocabulary words that they would need in order to now do this same activity in Spanish. We're also providing what we call the Super 7 verbs, Super Siete verbos. These are the verbs that if they can use these verbs, they can pretty much communicate most things if they have the vocab words to accompany them. It's a very basic communication, but it is communication. And so It's getting students to learn how to say I like, I have, I want, I am, I go, etc., and also in that third person form. And so students were then able to start to write some really simple sentences at the Spanish 1 level, or phrases. They're not necessarily expected to do sentences in Spanish 1. But by Spanish 4, they should be writing some much more, eloquent, longer, more information, more informative sentences. So that takes a couple days. That's our vocabulary building. The rest of the time after that, you can see if I go back to my Google Classroom, each day there's a skill: writing, speaking, reading, and listening. So they go through and they do each skill over a series of weeks. And so depending on if it's a full week or if it's a short week, they basically go through and they do a different sort of skill each day. So as their language teachers, our job then each time they do one of these is to then we pick one skill a week. And on Saturday morning, we all wake up, we all start texting each other, and we all start grading for that week. And we're all grading that same one activity that we've chosen. We are going through and we are providing feedback, which I will show you in a second. Here, what I'm showing you is just an example of one of those activities. It was a writing activity. They had to go through, they had to choose activities, 2 activities. They had to fill out this chart, the activity, with whom do they do it, where do they do it, why do they do it, all focused around home. And then they take all that information and they're supposed to put it and start to build some sentences. And I gave them some exemplars that I had created myself. So that would be an example of an activity that they would do. This is a flip grid. This would be a speaking practice. Again, it's just practice. We are assigning them, we are telling them their proficiency in that practice activity, but it's not part of their grade. It's just to let them know, oh yeah, right now you're at a 3, and that's great because you need to be a 3 in order to pass the course in June and move on to the next level. Or you're at a 2, and these are some ways that you can improve. So that would be another example of an activity. This would be a reading activity in which they're reading and then answering questions in English to show how much they can interpret, their interpretive skills. So that would be another activity. Then what we do is we post, you can see feedback. Every Friday or Monday of the next week, every Monday of the next week, we post a feedback document. So the week of November 16th to November 20th, they did their 4 skills, their reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and we decided to grade them on writing for that week. So we create videos, and depending on their level, they would go into Ipas, they would see their proficiency rating for that week. So if they got a WL2 or WL3 in Spanish 2, which I happen to teach, they would go onto this document, they have access to it, it's on Google Classroom, they would click on it, and they would bring up a feedback video. So I'm going to show that for couple seconds. Buenas noches, yo soy señora Gadet. Yo estoy aquí en mi casa. So in this feedback video, we decided to try to give a little bit more input since we were home and we didn't have our masks on. It's nice to be able to give them a little Spanish, but I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. Before you jump into your next topic, in this case, the couple of things that you like to do around your house, and make sure that they are set up in a way that it's clear, it's enjoyable for the reader to read. So just giving them some tips, bringing up the rubric that I would use. We use this rubric from Spanish 1 right through the Spanish 4, and I will show those in a minute. But giving them feedback on the actual piece of work that they were getting a proficiency rating on. So they get that. They also, on that feedback document, we provide them, here's the rubric that I was just showing you. This rubric, again, is used at all levels. And so this is their presentational. When they're writing in this form, it was a presentational. And so again, depending on their level, for Spanish 2, this is where they need to be by June. For Spanish 3, they need to be here by Spanish 4. And so they are able to see, okay, on this one skill, how do I use language? We're only going to pick one skill to really focus on every time we grade them. We're able to tell them right now, you're able to use phrases and short sentences. If you want to level up to the intermediate, you need to be able to start using simple strings of sentences, etc. So we provide them with the rubric again, which they've seen a million times. We also give some more feedback as well. So we gave some more general feedback on writing. We also gave some general feedback on speaking. I had asked the student if it was okay if I showed his exemplar or his work as an exemplar because he did such a nice job. So I created a Screencastify video showing his video and kind of highlighting the things that were done well. Buenos dias. The purpose. So if we skip ahead, get away from reading from a script and we just try to speak using the words that we know. En la cocina, en el cuarto, en el sótano. So again, we're allowing the students to, express themselves however they can, and then we're just giving them feedback as to where we feel that they are. Now, for this particular week, we did not give a proficiency rating on their speaking. We did it on their writing, but we still want to be able to give some feedback to them. Same thing with their listening. They received a video to watch about listening.
Hola chicos, this is an answer key for the listening from last week.
So again, we're able to provide that feedback. And then finally, we did some general feedback. I'm going to go to the Spanish too, because again, that's what I teach. And we're able to show some general feedback on reading as well. Buenos dias again. This video is going to walk through your reading from last week. So we're able to provide all that feedback right on Google Classroom, right on this document for the students. So this goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. We basically go through, we do all this practice work, leading up to our final assessments for each unit, which we call our IPAs. IPA stands for Integrated Performance Assessment. And so basically the idea behind an IPA is that students are supposed to be assessed on all three modes: interpretive, presentational, and interpersonal. And they're all supposed to be related. Think about it like in real life when you watch the news or you listen to the news. You take it in, you internalize it, you understand it, and then maybe I might turn to my husband and say, oh my goodness, this article that I read or this piece of news that I heard this morning on the radio, and I tell him about it. That's presentational. And then he might ask me some questions about it. Some like, oh goodness, where did that happen? Or what's going on? And then we're having a back and forth. That's our interpersonal. Those are the three modes of communication that we are working with our students. So the idea behind the IPAs is to make it very, very real life for them. So the IPAs for this unit, basically what we had our students do, if I can get there, is, excuse me, they took place over 2 days. So there's 3 parts, but we were able to do it over 2 days. And so basically they, first part of their IPA is their interpretive. You basically generally start with the interpretive because that's the part where they're taking in the message of whatever it is that they're doing. So our IPA for this one was, depending on the level, Spanish 1 and 2 watched one person, Spanish 3 and 4 another person, but they watched a link or they went to a link and they basically went in, and this is a website, SpanishListening.org, and there's a bunch of native speakers on here talking about different topics. Now, our topic again was communities, and thinking back to our circles, one of the things we talked about was town. So town, city, same idea. This is Julian talking about his city. So if I go in and hit play.
Hola, soy Julián, soy de Colombia.
So I can listen to Julian, and there's also the transcript of what he said right here. So I can read. It's still interpretive whether I'm listening or I'm reading. And so the idea behind that is then students go back to these circles, which they've been used to since day one, and they're able to show us in English, because this is interpretive, what did Julian say about his home? What did he say about school, town, state, and country? So he talked about his city. So they would be on the town, state slide, and they would write down anything. He said he lived in a big city. He said that there's a big transportation system, whatever he said. After they watched that one video, there's a whole list of videos down below. And so they had 25 minutes to go in and watch as many videos as they wanted, as many times as they wanted in that time frame. And then again, go back onto these slides and fill out showing us comprehension. So that was the first part of the IPA. Once they finished that first part of the IPA, I think I just closed it out, but they had to then go in and create a Flipgrid. The second part of it is, earlier you listened to Julian describe the communities that he's a part of and what he does. Now you're going to record your own to tell your listeners about your communities. And so they could go in and hit record a response. And so I have an example here of a student who gave his response. If I can go ahead and hit play.
Hola, me llamo Tyler. En mi casa yo tengo mi madre, mi padre, mi hermano
So Tyler goes in and he tells me all about his communities. They had a minute and a half to speak. And what's nice about Flipgrid is I'm able to go afterward, go in and give him some specific feedback. I will show this in a few minutes. So that's the second part of their IPA. And the third part of their IPA is now Julian is reaching out to you to learn more about you and your communities. So you're going to basically this was a teacher-led pear deck where the students had to first read what Julian had to say. So I played the role of Julian. I created these slides. It's teacher-led, so everybody's reading this question, and they're supposed to kind of predict a little bit. What do I think Julian's going to ask me? He says, "Hi, I'm Julian, and I'm from Colombia." Based on that, what do I think he's going to ask me? He's probably going to ask me my name, and might ask me where I'm from. So I go to the next question, and what's your name in your country? And so students had to go in and type. If they could use full sentences, great. If they could just get words and phrases, that's where the rubric comes in. They go in and they type their answers. And then I move on to the next slide. I pulled this language right from that website, right from his transcripts. I used Julian's language to make it as authentic as possible and led these students through, their pear deck. So they did that. So that wraps up. They did all 3 of those tests over 2 days. So now our job is we have I had 270 tests to grade in 3 days. So we want to give students some tasks to do that are important so we don't lose class time with them when we're trying to conference with them, which is the last step. So we basically had students after that, we had them create, I don't know where they went, but students had to create or had to do a portfolio. So let me bring that up now. After that, the last part is their portfolio, which is really important because this is where a student is able to really dive into how they did for that unit of study. So I'm going to look at Tyler's, and here's his portfolio. His first thing is he had to write down, thinking back to those vocab lists that he made at the very beginning in Spanish and English. Here, he's now going to put all of the words that he learned from the unit, and it's going to differ from student to student. Then he could reflect on what he thought his best work of the unit was. He could reflect on what he thought his worst work of the unit was. He could reflect on what the most fun work that he did for the unit was. He also was able to come up with some personal goals because we want them thinking about, vocabulary, super 7 verbs, completion, attending, participation, resources. We want them to think, okay, yeah, I really have to get better when I miss something of reaching out to my teacher and asking for help, or attending office hours, or coming to Zoom classes, whatever it might be. And then the last part is setting goals for language. And so these are the same rubrics that we use: the interpretive, the presentational, and the interpersonal. The interculturality comes, it's basically the bottom of each one of these rubrics as a cultural piece. So we just put that as a separate one. So in Tyler's case, he really wants to focus, I did not want to do that. He really wants to focus on moving up to that WL4 because he's really already at the WL3. So he chose, we told him to pick one standard. He chose to focus on how well he's understanding the main idea and details. He's already getting a 3. So he's really focused on how can he start to move up to the 4, and it gives some ideas behind that. And the same thing when it comes to all of his other rubrics as well. He sets his goal by moving this little red circle and deciding what his personal goals are. And the same thing for culture. So students do that. The last step is teachers then conference with students. This takes about 3 days, maybe even longer, depending on how big our classes are. Because what we do is over Zoom, we set up a Zoom time to meet with each student. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes, depending on the work that was completed, depending on, just the feedback that we have. So that's that very last part. And I want to show you what that looks like if I can get there. So we created folders with all of our students. So if I go into C block, I would go down to Tyler's folder and I can open Tyler's folder. So what I've done is I've put in here this Google slideshow. This is particular directly to Tyler. These are the 3, his 3 tests. what I gave him for a grade. For interpretive mode, he got a WL3, and then I have some feedback for him. For his presentational mode, this is where that Flipgrid video, which I alluded to earlier, I'm able to give him direct feedback right on Flipgrid. Hola, Tyler. Just some feedback on your Flipgrid video. So when we conference, we actually watch this together so that I can give him in the moment feedback on that. And then I'm also giving him feedback on his interpersonal work, and then able to type out a little narrative here. This gets shared with the student. It also gets shared with the parent. So there's access there as well, so that, excuse me, as we continue to grade, as we continue to move through units, we will do a different one of these for each units that we do. So we're able to conference with each student, give them that one-on-one time, really walk them through. We can even look at, we've done it both ways, where we've also looked at their portfolios together to focus on, like, what are your goals? How can we get you there? How can we move you forward? The only other thing that's notable is that every week we also do a weekly check-in. And so we post this every Monday. And we just try to check in. How's it going? What did you enjoy? What are you not enjoying? Like, now that we've done it, which of these following statements apply? Like, oh, I only included Spanish words I learned in Spanish 1 and 2, or I haven't done my dictionary yet, or I put a lot of effort in, or I didn't put a lot of effort in. They're able to really reflect, and students are really honest on here. Are you doing your work during class time? Or if you're not, when are you doing your work? And we really try to gear these each week to whatever we've done in class, really get that feedback. We look at that feedback. We try to make adjustments. It's all about adjusting and meeting the students where they are. So the whole purpose in showing you this is really to give you an outline of how we're running things, how the classroom is working, literally how Google Classroom is working. We're using Pear Deck, we're using Flipgrid, we're using Google Slides, we're using Edpuzzle, just all these different sites and all these different things that are available to us to use to really help our students have the most personalized opportunities and, situation in here as we possibly can. So hopefully this is helpful. If there are any questions at all, please feel free to reach out.